Yo, good day, gents and ladies, and welcome to another episode of Father's Fire. My name's Jody Cedric, and every week we get together to explore the joys, the challenges, the triumphs, the sorrows, and yes, the fun of being a dad. And I tell you, this week has been a week of both sorrow and joy for me. Joy in that I've been having a great time with my family, especially my younger kids, Ashton and Cynthia. We've been able to go out and spend some time fishing and just hanging out. It's been fantastic. But my heart has been heavy, given what has happened in Uvalde, Texas. And there are so many discussions around gun control and mental health. And as I've thought about this and had discussions with my kids, I'm like, you know what? We tend to, in my opinion, we're talking around the real issue. And so I reached out to my good friend, Shawnee the Kid, and I thought, you know what? Let's have a discussion and let's talk about this, because the way I look at it, well, I guess I should say welcome, Shawnee.
Thanks, man.
Oh, man, I always love your insight and your perspective, and you're always such a champion for the family. And as I thought about what happened in Uvalde, and I've had many, many discussions with my kids, it's made, at least in my opinion, I think it's a family issue. When you get down to the very core of the problem, in America, we have a family issue. And there are young men, young women that are walking around with huge holes in their hearts, in the shape of their father, in the shape of their mother, in the shape of whatever parenting figure that should be in their life, and they're not there. And so these kids are dealing with really heavy challenges, and unfortunately they resort to such tragic measures that end up with the taking of 19 children and 2 adults. Man, it's a travesty. So I just want to reach out to you and talk about that.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you're doing this, because this type of thing should not be normal. And too many of us just kind of like I'll be honest, when I heard about it at first, I'm like, man, not again, you know? And it's becoming so normalized that we're sort of numb to this kind of thing. And that's sad, because you're right, man. It is a big family thing. There's a lot of aspects to this. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's so sad. Like, I have trouble getting too involved in learning about it, reading about it. I know a little bit about it. I don't know exactly. Maybe you could school me a little bit about the person that did this, what happened with them, and kind of a little bit of background, because I'll be honest, it just kind of breaks my heart, and I hate to go there sometimes, you know. Not that I don't care, but it's just that this type of thing has become, like, it seems like every year. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have this one kid that, I mean, I worked in ministry that I worked with in the martial arts, where there's a lot of kids that just don't have dad at home. They don't have people that talk to them at home. They come home to an empty house a lot of the time. They don't have any relationship with their parents. They don't have, and what happens is people get hooked on the TV. They get hooked onto like craziness. And it's almost like the devil gets a hold of them, and then things like this happen. And I feel like if there was better relationships at home, better relationships between parents and kids, the chances of these types of things happening would be a lot less, if I think we took just a little bit of extra time with our family.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, because right when this happened, I also had a call from a young man that I'm very close to, and he had listened to a podcast that I had on Father's Fire a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, Jody, can I reach out and talk to you?" And as I listened to him, man, my heart just broke, because here's a young man, you know, he's the same age as this young man that instituted such a travesty in Uvalde. And I'm thinking about, as I'm listening to him, as he is trying with every fiber of his being, trying to figure out a way to reconnect with his mom, to resolve the hurt and the loss in his life. And he just doesn't know how to bridge the gap. But fortunately for him, he has had a very supportive, extended family around him. And so he has had some type of net to catch him, right? And so many of these young men that perpetrate these crimes, when you look at deeper into their story, they just didn't have that net. And it just breaks my heart. And to me, it makes a greater call for the strengthening of the family, because there are so many of us men, we get so caught up in making the dollar that sometimes we forget our family. And as you know, I do some coaching with men that have come out of the prison system, or they're dealing with back child support, and they're trying to reconnect with their kids, and they have all of these issues. And when I look back, as I hear their stories, inevitably it goes back to when they were younger, trying to be the man, and were living a very riotous lifestyle, bouncing from lady to lady, and they end up with all of these baby mamas, but with no real commitment to building a family, to building a relationship. And so now, their kids are the literal consequences of those decisions. And the kids are trying to figure out where they fit in their place. Do they have a dad? Do they have a mom? Am I loved? Am I valued? And then you compound the problem, if there's any kind of bullying at school. It just, to me, it just reinforces the need for us to do everything we can to strengthen the family.
So I have so much to say about what you just said. I'm in the same position, and I agree about the family thing a lot. And I want to tell you a real quick story. I coached a guy that was in and out of the prison system. He was in a gang who, he would be at the gym for a while, and then he'd be in jail for a while, and then he'd be back at the gym for a little bit, and then he'd be in jail again. And this guy, he was never really going to be like a really good fighter or anything. He was very dopic and sort of clumsy, but he just liked to be in it for the fight. He liked to show that he was tough and everything like that. Well, I remember he disappeared for about 6 months, and he came back to the gym the one day, and he just had to fight somebody. He comes in, he's like, I want to spar. And I'm like, no, dude, you haven't been here for 6 months. And I'm about to walk out the door, and I'm like, I see him over in the ring, not listening to me, and I had my work clothes on. I was about to leave, and I threw some gear in the gym, put that on, and I go in and I just box with him for a little bit. Anyway, the kid ended up, I keep saying kid, he was 25. He ended up, committing murder a couple weeks after that, and he ended up in jail. He's going to be in jail probably forever because of what happened. It was a gang-related murder. But the point of it is that this young man, his father was not in the house. He was raised by his mom. He had very serious issues with his mom, and he was in and out of jail. A lot of his gang-related stuff had to do with his parents not really being there for him. And I saw this in him from the very first time I saw him. And it's kind of like we try to do our best for people. We don't know that somebody's going to commit a crime like that. But you're right. It has a lot to do with just having someone that cares about them. I grew up in a situation where I remember being suicidal, and I had a teacher at school who was just nice to me. Well, I didn't fit in with kids. I got in a lot of trouble. Wrong crowd, all that. My dad was in and out of jail, but my mom was just not trying to have me. I was living with my aunts and my grandma. But the point of it is that I had one teacher in school that was kind to me and didn't really treat me bad like some of the other teachers did. And I really respected him for it. And he could have saved my life, because at that time in my life, I was very depressed, very, doing anything I can to feel like my own person, I guess you could say, getting involved with the wrong crowd and stuff like that. And for someone that does something like this, what happened at the school is just like you really have to take the things that I've been through and multiply them to get to that place, I think. But that could have been any of us. That could have been any of us doing something stupid. We get hooked on the wrong thing. We go, like, I literally have been hospitalized against my will. Not proud of that, but I'm just saying, like, I could have done something stupid like that, not being in my right mind. And the thing is that, we don't realize that the way we act during the day, the way we treat other people during the day affects them. And it could just take one act of kindness to change someone's whole life. And I know that because, like I said, I had a teacher when I was in 10th grade who was my English teacher, and he was just nice to me. I don't know why. And I'm saying that I don't even remember the guy's name, but I remember that time in my life. I remember my other teachers being mean to me. I remember getting in trouble at school. And I remember that one teacher, like, it was kind of like I looked forward to talking to him, and I don't know, man, because if, like, my dad wasn't at home, I didn't really have my parents, and that teacher made a little bit of a difference in my life. And if he wouldn't have been there, if he wouldn't have acted the way he did, which he really didn't do anything extravagant, he was just kind. And that meant a lot to me, I guess, because I hated school. I hated all my other teachers. And I can only imagine what somebody is thinking and going through. And I'm not making excuses for what happened, but it's just that there's a reason why somebody acts like that,
Yeah, there really is power in kindness. And I appreciate that you share that story, because a lot of times we as adults think everything is okay. And you can have the best family situation and still things can be challenging. We dealt with, teen suicide in our family. And on the surface, I mean, I knew that there were challenges that our child was dealing with. But then to actually have that call that they had actually attempted suicide was heart-wrenching, right? And it made me realize that as attentive as I was, there were still things that I wasn't seeing, or that she wasn't opening up to me, right? And so it's really critical that we not only be kind, but we lean into people's sorrow. We lean into people's struggles. And the challenge is, a lot of times, it's like my wife always says this, it's like, we need to be kinder to people, because you don't know what they went through last night in their home, this morning in their home, or the past year in their home. And them just showing up is a triumph, and it should be celebrated. And as I've taken that philosophy into my heart, I'm like, I just have to be gentler. I have to be kinder. I have to be more patient. I have to extend more grace when I don't feel like it's deserved. I mean, because come on, sometimes, dads, we can bring down the hammer. We can shut a kid down. We can make them feel this small just by the way our demeanor is, combined with the tone of our voice. And a lot of times I think we justify the things that we're saying in the name of discipline, of teaching, when we're really being unkind and vicious and lashing out because we're not feeling respected. And I'm coming to the conclusion that, what? We as dads, sometimes your kids are going to ruffle, but we have to lean in. And sometimes, even though we're being disrespected or we're not receiving the love that we feel or the response, you have to recognize that those kids are still working through the challenges of their life. And you, a lot of times you diminish them, go, oh, come on, it's not that hard. Well, it's not that hard for you because you've already gone through it. This is the first time they face some of these challenges. And so you have to take it from the lens of, all right, how do I help them walk through these emotional landmines that they're going through, instill hope and confidence and self-worth, while at the same time trying to teach and mold and model a way of life that is productive.
Yeah, it's a lot to. It's a lot for a dad to contemplate everything you just said, because it's like you're right on. I think, and for me too, it's like when I'm tired and I don't feel like dealing with some emotional thing, I kind of can shut down or just act wrong. But yeah, man, I totally, I think you're spot on with that, because the thing is, it takes effort to do the right thing. And a lot of the times when we're tired, we make excuses not to do the right thing, and we just go, well, I'm not going to deal with this right now, or I'm not going to do this. And then you don't take something that's serious as it should be, and you end up kind of in the situation that you were in. Like, you probably knew there was a problem, but you just didn't take the extra little effort, and then you hear something like that. I can't imagine it. But,
When I think, looking back, I think a lot of times we can see that there's a problem, but we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. And like the example of your teacher, just being there is enough. I mean, it's amazing what just being a friendly resource, a friendly smile, a friendly look, what it does for the psyche, for the emotional well-being of the kids. And I think too, a lot of times we try to look at the symptoms of the problem and not the real issue. Like, for example, when we adopted our kids, they had some emotional trauma that they were working through. And, I remember very distinctly a 3-hour temper tantrum where clothes were shredded and people were running around the house and spitting and clawing and all this stuff. And finally, we ended up collapsing on our kitchen door. And I'm just holding my daughter, praying for guidance. I'm praying for insight. I'm praying for peace. I'm praying for an added measure of love and understanding. And I think sometimes we as dads push past that. We just want it solved instead of going, what is the core issue of the problem? Yes, they're misbehaving. Yes, they're throwing a temper tantrum. But what is the real problem? In my case of my daughter, she had some very raw experiences at a very young age that she has had to work through, right? And I had to step back and go, all right, I have to recognize that I need to be the shoulders, I need to be the backbone, I need to be the knees that are praying before God to give me insight on to know how to help. But I think a lot of times we try to rush the healing when it's our timeline, not their timeline.
That's deep. Yeah, man. I think for me, like, my daughter hasn't been through that stuff, but I have trouble sometimes talking to her, because it's hard when there's a problem and you want to be there to like fix the problem, And it's kind of what you said. You can't rush it because something's going on that's not going to be instantly fixed. Going through that right now with my teenager, and it's good, like you said, just to be there. But what's hard for me is when my daughter kind of shuts me out or she doesn't talk to me for a couple days, and I don't know what she's thinking, and I'm just kind of like, man, like I don't know. What's up, Sean? No, I feel you totally on that, and I can't imagine, what you were saying. If my daughter was dealing with that, um, it's tough to do, like I said, the right thing and be there when you want to just fix things and get it done and move on. Um, for me, I have to train myself to relax, and be like, um, kind of in the moment and not rush things, and that takes practice, and it takes a lot of belief, I think, in God to keep your calmness and keep your confidence and not get too depressed and not get wound up in all of the anxieties of things. I've had to learn to kind of lay those things at God's feet and be like, all right, it's going to be okay, it's going to be all right, and tell myself that, because there are things that are just not going to be easy, and I feel like I would love to be a fly on the wall for this gentleman that uh, committed this crime, what was going on in their house for the past couple of years, because it's kind of like we don't, not only do we not want our kids to end up like that, we don't want our kids to even go anywhere near that road, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Do you know anything about the guy or anything yet?
No, no, I don't. My wife's dug into it deeper than I have. And in fact, she's pretty consumed by it. And it's interesting because I had another conversation with a lady that I coach. And, she was talking to me about her business, and she deals with insurance. And I said, when was the last time we as adults had to worry about our kids going to school? We live in a different time where when we kiss our babies and send them off to school, unfortunately, travesties like Uvalde have happened. And so, as I'm looking at how, we're raising our kids, are we arming them with the foundational elements to enable them to be successful in life, to be kind, right? Because we all know that online bullying is a big problem. And so teaching our kids that they need to be the champion of the unloved. They need to be the champion of that one kid, or that's sitting to the corner. Can you go and love them? There's a young man, and I'm still very embarrassed about it. When I was a kid, that I wasn't kind to. I wasn't as kind to him. And as I look back, he was, a young man, single mom situation. His mom was doing the best she could, and having her kid come to scouts and church, and because he was different, he was easy to isolate and pick on. And dude, I feel so bad. If I could see him again, I would tell him with all my heart how sorry I am that I wasn't the champion of his heart. And so, as a father, I've been instilling in my kids, I'm like, look, you need to be, I get it. There are so many weird dynamics in high school and middle school and all that, but I want you to always be the kid that is standing up for everybody. I want you to be able to walk among all circles, the athletes, the stoners, the science geeks, the music kids. I want you to be able to move in all those circles. You may not necessarily appreciate all of their gifts, but you can always be kind.
Amen.
You can always be a source of love.
You're an awesome dad, bro. I just love talking to you. You give me ideas for stuff I got to have conversations with my kids. 'Cause I don't have anyone in my area. I'm not the oldest, but I have the oldest family. Like, my kids are older than all my friends' kids. And we were just over at my buddy's house last night. He has like a 3-year-old, you know what I mean? But but no, I learned something. I worked in ministry for the past like 7 or 8 years, and one thing I learned is that above all ministering to people and everything, you have to be a friend. First and foremost, you have to be a trustworthy friend, and that's about the long and short of ministry, in my opinion. Um, when you don't care about people and when you don't really like take people's feelings into consideration, they don't care about you. And I can tell you of tons of people in my past that, from just being a friend, befriending like a kid who was signed up in my karate program or the parents or whatever, I've made a lot of friends. And I feel like I've had a lot of parents come to me and say, "Hey, you've like changed my kid's life forever. Thank you." And I don't really feel like I did anything. All that I was doing was just being a friend and being there. There's been times when I've had some really serious conversations with parents about discipline and about, being a dad and stuff. And I'm, one of the younger dads. I had kids young, kind of, But the thing is, I feel like we have to be able to take that home. We have to be able to be a friend to our family, to our wife, to our kids, and a lot of people aren't. a lot of guys, I feel like they swim through life doing sort of the bare minimum because they're tired. They don't understand that it's not about doing things; it's about being there for your family, and that's a tough pill to swallow. And I was one of those dads that really had a hard time figuring things out. I didn't have a good model to go off of, but somehow God brought me through it and showed me that, if I want to have a good family, I got to pay attention to my wife. I got to care about my wife first and foremost, and I got to take care of her. I got to take care of her emotions, and from that, we run our family. And my wife is just so wonderful, man, and she's put up with a lot, and she's given me a lot of grace and a lot of patience. And I feel like our kids see that, even though like things haven't been like perfect, but our kids see us growing as people as well. And I think that's huge, especially for my daughter, who's a little bit older, who just, she's learning things in life. But I think she's seeing the maturity going from here to here slowly. We're getting a little better over time. I think that's having an effect on her. So at least, we're doing something there. But
Yeah,
I go ahead.
no, and I think it's a process, right? I think we as men who are invested in our families, we have to be a beacon to others, right? We have to be the champion of the family. And I look at a lot of men, especially the men that I've worked with that are trying to reconnect with their kids. They didn't have that vision. They didn't have that passion when they were younger, and now they're trying to compensate for it. They're trying to rebuild those bridges that were never built in the first place, and frustrated that they're not. And so I guess my call is to us men is to recognize the key role that we play as dads in the family. Whether your family's divorced or split or been married for 30 years, there's always something that we can do to create a safe place, a place where people feel loved and cherished, and take that same attitude of love, right? Because you can't go to your neighbor and pontificate. You just have to be the example, and then, do the things that will enable other people to say, you know what, what are you doing different? I'd like to do that. Right. And it's not easy, right? It's so complicated. Families are messy, but they're messy because we as men often are messy instead of being dedicated.
Do you think it takes a long time for a guy to like realize who he is? Like, I mean,
Yes.
what I mean is like we kind of, for me, I'm like, I come to a realization that I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. I have a house. I have responsibilities, and I'm still playing this whole like who am I thing till I'm like 30 years old, and then I start to realize like I don't want my life to fail. I don't want my family to fail, and I kind of like go. I feel like looking back, like I spent a lot of time just living like kind of like a false life in a way, because it's kind of like I felt like, I thought I knew what was going on. I wanted this or that. I was trying to act like I was somebody in my business. At the same time, like, I'm not really like, I got married. I was dedicated to my wife, but I don't feel like I really was dedicated until I was older. Like, I didn't understand the how dedicated you have to be, I guess you could say, to make it. I didn't realize that until I was like 10 years into it, you know what I mean? And I feel like, I think a lot of guys go through that. I think because I see the whole like egomaniac thing with a lot of guys that are like 25 to 30 years old. And I feel like I look back and I see guys, I have friends that act like that still. They're still trying to figure out who they are as a person and not realizing that they got kids now, and I kind of feel like I went through that too, and so I can't really pick on them too much. But how do you have that how do you have a conversation with one of your close friends like, yo, you got to grow up, man? like that's a hard thing.
That is the hard part, right? Because I was having a discussion with another person, and I'm like, look, you have to realize that the trail of sorrow and challenges were caused by when you were younger, right? And so now you're paying the piper, and you're frustrated because you weren't who you should have been when you were younger, and you're trying desperately to figure it out now. So now not only are you trying to figure it out now, but you're also trying to make amends for the past. And it's challenging because you can look at somebody and you can see the path that they're heading on. And until they want to look at themselves, it's extremely difficult for them to change their paths.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I kind of, in the past 10 years, I grew up around a lot of different guys I started to care about because I'm either working with them at my gym or I'm training with them or doing something with them. And there's this one guy in particular, he, real nice guy, still lives with his parents, tried to start a couple of businesses that didn't really work out, but he had a really, really pretty girlfriend. They had a baby. Now, I literally watched this girl come to our gym. My wife could care less. I've been doing karate for 15 years. She came to my black belt test and won boxing match, and I'd done tons of that stuff. It's like, something I don't expect my wife to be there for. It's like a guy thing or whatever. I don't know. But the point of it is this dude's girlfriend would sit with their baby, an infant, for years and come into the gym and sit on the floor and watch this guy work out every night of the week. Every night. And I'm like, you don't know how good you got it, bro. No woman does that, okay? Like, she cares about you. This guy ends up, like, getting addicted to pornography, ends up cheating on his wife, ends up breaking up with her. The baby's kind of, all over the place now. But the point of it is that this guy, he's a good guy, but he's just immature. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to tell him, like, how much he frustrates me with the way he's got it so good and he doesn't even realize it. And I see, like, that's just one example that I kind of see a lot of. And I feel like a lot of guys that are in their 20s, early 30s are very, very immature, and they don't realize that they got a good woman until it's, like, too late. And it's pretty sad because you got kids mixed up into this stuff, But, yeah.
No, it's a complicated discussion, right? And I guess what it comes down to, especially, men like you and I and Sean, who's watching the podcast, it's like to be a beacon of hope, to be a resource when they need to talk and they need to question themselves and ask, why we do things and why we don't do things. And to really share our experiences are critical, because in the end, to me, in my opinion, all problems start in the family, right? No success can compensate for failure in the home. And a lot of men and even women now, they're so in pursuit of the bag that they don't pursue the thing that is most important. And that's that lovely wife, that lovely significant other, and their children. And they lose perspective of that. And we need to have a call back to that. And I recognize, I have to recognize that there are families that don't have that. And, I look at this young man that I was talking to, about trying to reconnect with his wife with his mom. And I'm like, you know what? You may not be able to heal everything that happened, but you can start from today. And you and your girlfriend can get on a trajectory that is positive, and you can change the cycle. And I guess that's my message. It's never too late to change the cycle, both in our immediate family and in our communities. It just means that we men need to take an active role. Just like Ezekiel 33, we need to be men on the tower, spreading a warning voice and saying, look, guys, we need a call for men to step up and be men. We need a call for men to take an active role in their families. We need you to pursue your wife just like you pursued her when she was your girlfriend. Dude, you went out of your way. You went out of your way to make her feel like she was the queen, like that you were the man of her dreams. And somewhere along the line, that stopped. You got to recapture that. Especially if you want your family to have happiness.
I would take that one step further, bro, because when we talk about stuff like this to a young man or somebody or some random Joe, here's my video, what it is they think, well, it's going to be more work. And what it is not only do you have to do it, you have to be excited to do it. Like, you actually have to care about your woman and want to do it for the sake of your marriage, not because like you're going to put some kind of Band-Aid on it. You know what I mean? And what happens is we don't realize that we've taken our relationship and we've just basically become, I don't know, numb to it, or we've become like we've just kind of forgotten about it or whatever. And we used to care about it. And you're right. Back in the day, we'd swim an ocean for that woman. You know what I mean? Like, no problem. And now it's like a big deal to go give her a kiss or something. Like, what happened there? And it's like, dude, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me, because I know that you had kind of a rough childhood, right? And so I wanted to get your perspective, because there are kids, there are men who had rough childhoods, but that doesn't mean that they can't change a cycle, that they can't build a family that they've always dreamed of. And sometimes it's just modeling exactly the opposite of what you experienced in your home and being dedicated to being the man that you said you wanted to be. And I just appreciate what you do. I appreciate everything, the messages that you share on TikTok, the call for men to be better, the call for couples to be better to each other, right? I think a lot of times people go, oh, well, you're just talking to men. No, we're talking to both. Well, yeah, we're focused on men primarily, but it applies to both. And we need to be better to each other, and as you said, to be kinder and more loving. So I want to thank you so much. Want to wish you and your wife.
You and the boys you guys are like mentors to me, man. I really look up to all you guys, and I feel like, something you just said kind of touched my heart. Like, I remember back in the day having just I got stories, man, about my childhood that are just crazy. And the thing is I remember telling myself I will never let my kids grow up like this, and I meant it. And so when my wife told me she was pregnant, like, we were already married, but it was like, this is getting real now. And I feel like God put me on a path to do the best I could possibly do for my kids. And I'm not even close to where I could be. I feel like there's always bigger, better, But the thing is that I know that my kids are loved. I know that they're in a good house. I know that we have stability in our house. And those things, having just the stability and the peace in our house is the most important thing to me. I don't care if I'm unhappy, as long as the house is not falling apart. I will do anything possible to do it, to keep the peace in the house and to keep things intact, because there's nothing worse than, as a kid, than moving around and feeling like nobody cares about you and growing up frustrated and angry. And I remember, I was thinking about this the other day because I had to go drop one of my friends off at one of the high schools I used to go to. I remember one time I was at school and I got in trouble for something, and I threw like a fit, and I went outside and I was like punching this like tennis court like fence, like the wall. And I remember just being like super angry. And I was like 16. And the other day, like I said, I had to drop one of my friends off at that school, and it just kind of crossed my mind about that. And I'm like thinking, man, it's like a miracle that I even have a car. Like I'm thinking, but anyway, but I appreciate you too, man.
Well, at the beginning, I said it's a family problem. When you look at what happened in Uvalde, it is a family problem, but it's also a family solution. That if we can have a reignitement of people's hearts, especially men, to be good fathers, to be dedicated to their families, we can change the dialogue, but it starts in the family. So let's turn a family problem into a family solution by being the men, the husbands, the fathers that our children need, and let's change the dialogue. Let's change the outcome of what we're seeing in our communities and in our states, and we can make a difference. But I firmly believe that it starts with us men. So I invite all of us men to do a better job. And I want to thank you for the beacon of light that you are in your channel on TikTok. Guys, if you haven't followed Shawnee the Kid, go out to TikTok. He's doing something every day about promoting families and relationships and being a good husband, being a good father, being a good man in general. And so go follow him. And I want to thank you guys for tapping in with me every week here on Father's Fire. And we will check you same time, same bad channel, just next week. See ya.